JOJOLands is the 9th and current parts of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. The first chapter was published on February 17th of 2023. So it's been ongoing for about 2 years now, and we have 22 chapters that are currently out. It's an exciting story that focuses on Jodio Joestar, a 15-year-old boy living in Honolulu. Not only that, it features 4 other companions, so it's a 5-companion crew here. We got Jodio, his brother Dragona, Paco, Usagi, and Charming Man. Each one has their own unique stand abilities, and it's an absolutely exciting and enthralling tale. And in this video, we're going to be talking about all 22 chapters that are currently out. So it's going to be a summarization and analysis of what's going on in the story. And then at the end of the story, I'm going to talk about my favorite character, funniest character, best stand ability, best poses, and an overall score for the manga itself as of right now. So I got over an hour of content for you guys today. I hope you like it. If you do enjoy it, by the end of the video, I would appreciate if you like and subscribe. But with that said, guys, let's start with the JOJOLands Chapter 1. The new adventure stage is... This may sound like bullshit, but this is the story of one boy becoming rich in the subtropical islands. This boy, Jodio Joestar. The island's floating in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, Hawaii. And this is Chapter 1 of JOJOLands, Mechanism. To start things off, we see a couple of police officers driving in their patrol vehicle as they pull someone over. One of the officers approaches the vehicle and tells the passengers to turn off the radio. The female says that the officer is too close, and that she wasn't going too fast. The officer wants to see her driver's license, as he claims that she was driving unsteadily. The woman then pulls out her driver's license in a mysterious fashion. The officer tells her to wait, as she feels confident that she wasn't driving unsteadily. The girl's little brother is in the passenger seat, as the officer determines that the car doesn't belong to her. It's her parents' car, and she's worried that she might catch COVID from the police officer. The officer takes this as a racist remark, and demands that she step out of the car. The officer proceeds to abuse his power by groping the woman at his own discretion. He claims he's got a duty to justice, and he must perform a precise investigation of any unlawful activity. He sticks his hands into her underwear to pull out her driver's license. The boy steps out of the car and says, "Hey, what the hell are you doing? Get your hands off of Big Bro right now. You got me." The officer is flabbergasted by what he just said, as the other one points his gun at the boy. The older brother, whom I've been calling a girl to this point, begs for his little brother, Jodio, to get back into the car. The officer threatens Jodio, but rain droplets touch his body and knock him onto the ground. In fact, they're utterly crushing him. We then get our first look at Jodio's stand, a cybernetic creature with 4 mechanical legs. The other officer tells him to stand down. The older brother touches the officer's face, making the eyes move upon command. Water droplets crush the officer into the ground, as Jodio calls him an asshole for what he did. The older brother, however, is less than pleased that Jodio did this to the cops. Jodio wants to burn any evidence of their involvement. The older brother agrees, as he uses his stand power to change the license plate number. And the stand itself looks like little mechanical robots with tank treads as legs. He then gets rid of the fake license as well. The two take off as they head over to a junkyard. They drop off what looks to be drugs, as they're given money for their service. The two's mother is Barbara Ann, and she gets up at 7:15 every morning and starts her day by running the washing machine. Turns out that she's a well-respected and well-loved individual, so people from the neighborhood help her commute to work at the airport. Big brother's name is Dragona Joestar, 18 years old. He enjoys girl-like fashion and works at a fashion boutique. Now, the slight swelling in his chest is from cosmetic injections. Their parents came here to Honolulu, Hawaii from Atlantic City on the mainland. But a bunch of stuff went on, so they're raised by their mother alone. As we discover that Barbara Ann Joestar is a daughter of Joseph Joestar and Susie Q. Jodio Joestar is 15 years old. Jodio hands some cash over to a boy on the bus. A mysterious man tells the boy to look deep inside the rain gutter. He proceeds to do so and finds some drugs inside. Jodio is here for what he calls the mechanism, but he, however, is just a transporter, which has earned him some nice pocket money. He juxtaposes himself with some kid who gets beaten up on a regular basis. Jodio states that this story is about him getting rich, but there's something far more important than that. Mechanisms. It's a general principle that brings you wealth. This is a story of one boy becoming filthy rich in the subtropical islands. Still not enough modesty for you? Well, sorry, I'm becoming rich no matter what it takes. This is Paco Lovelantis. He's 19 years old and he's still in high school. He lost a chunk of his ear due to his dad biting it off. What, is his dad Mike Tyson or something? Apologies if you find this offensive, Mike Tyson. Paco has a stand ability that allows him to steal. He can grab onto things with the backs of his hands and elbows, all without moving his fingers. Dragona grabs onto Paco's ear and wonders what he's doing in the shop. A large lady then states that they are closing down for the rest of the day. Dragona locks the store as they meet with Meryl May, the large woman. She turns out to be their school principal and the proprietress of the boutique, making her their boss. Aiko, the boutique, is just a means for hiding their criminal business. Meryl May shows them a photo of a natural diamond that's worth over $6 million. A Japanese tourist has the diamond in their possession, and they plan on staying in Hawaii for 15 days. If they do the job, they'll get 40 grand each for their efforts. They all agree, as Meryl says that they'll be going as a team of 4. The 4th member arrives, as it turns out to be the guy that Jodio sold the goods to earlier. This is the beginning. The boss did call one thing correctly. Just the 3 of us would seriously not have been enough. Actually, it wouldn't have been enough no matter how many people we had. We then find out that Jodio's stand is November Rain. Dragona's stand is Smooth Operators, and Paco's stand is The Hustle. Alright, so now we're on chapter 2, The Japanese Man in Hawaii. Now this chapter starts off with a girl riding on a bicycle. She introduces herself as Kate's friend to Jodio. She has an exam this weekend and wants some of quote-unquote that. Jodio brushes her aside by saying he doesn't know any Kate. Before she leaves, however, Jodio tells her to put some money she owes into an empty juice can. Now the girl has $100 and wants to know how much product she can get. Nevertheless, Jodio thinks she's kinda sus. In fact, he suspects that she's a cop. He wonders if she shoved a camera or mic into the headlights of the bike. And perhaps she's even working with the ice cream shop guy. Despite this, he tells her to put the money in the can. Perturbed by this treatment, the girl decides she doesn't want to do business. She then says that police officers are people of justice, so they can't lie. So if they were doing an undercover investigation and they were caught lying, the evidence would be invalidated. Therefore, if he simply asked her if she's a police officer, she would have to say, "Yes, I am." "Are you a police officer?" asked Jodio. "No, I'm not a police officer. I'm just a college student," says the girl. Jodio then tells her to walk towards the King Kamehameha statue, which she does. Paco then comes by and says that she stepped on something. And upon looking down, she sees a bag of drugs. She then pulls out a gun and says that she's with the DEA. Jodio is taken down by several officers as he can't believe what just happened. Turns out that the woman was recording the whole conversation. Now the 2 of them are just small fries. The DEA is after their boss. She then tells the officers to read them their rights. Now it turns out that the officer that's holding down Jodio is the same officer that pulled them over the other day. And it turns out that he likes the feeling of touching Dragona's ass, knowing full well that Dragona is a male. In fact, he'd like for Jodio, or especially Dragona, to lick his cock. Raindrops suddenly appear, destroying the incriminating evidence. Now, being that they're not stand users, they're helpless to do anything against Jodio's stand. On an unrelated note, Jodio has an antisocial personality disorder, meaning he might be a psychopath. Barbara Ann, his mother, was in disbelief when she heard this, but Jodio said he'd be careful. "I'm about to lose my shit," claims Jodio. We next see the main group at the Hawaii Kona airport. Usagi was supposed to secure a car for them, but he suggests that they split the price. Now, Usagi is 17, Dragona is 18, Paco is 19, and Jodio is 15. The 4 of them get in the car and begin their mission. Now, it turns out that the Japanese man's house is still occupied at the moment, but he's all alone with no other guest. And because of this, he'll most likely be spending his time at the pool. Now, Jodio's going to keep watch while the others go inside and retrieve the diamond. And they're going to concentrate their efforts on the master bedroom. Jodio then spots a cat on the premises, as he urges the others to remain patient. Dragona says he wants a camera, as Usagi unveils his stand ability, and it's called Mat Kudasai. It takes an existing object and transforms it into something you want. Okay, we're going in. We then see the Japanese man swimming in the pool. While using his binoculars, Jodio immediately recognizes the man. "I have his books at home, and I always watch his anime online. He's a mangaka, and the target's name is Kishibe Rohan." Alright, so now we're on chapter 3 of JOJOLands. They'll do anything to achieve their goal. The team is made up completely of stand users. Jodio strolls his way into the mansion, while Rohan continues swimming in his luxurious pool. Jodio hides behind some furniture, and begins to gush over the fact that he's in the presence of the real Kishibe Rohan. This is a half-drawn manuscript of Pink Dark Boy. Sheesh! I'm so nervous my fingers are shaking. Just being able to see art like this is making my day, says Jodio. Meanwhile, Dragona summons smooth operators to open the door. With the door open, Dragona's group is right ahead inside. But Jodio warns them not to stand by the sliding glass door in the living room, that way Rohan doesn't discover them. Dragona, Paco, and Usagi enter the lavish estate. Dragona instructs them to just focus on the diamond, since they'll risk attention from airport security when leaving the island. Unfortunately, Paco and Usagi are straight up stealing everything they can get their hands on. And this dude Paco is even stealing a toilet plunger. Dragona sternly tells them to put everything back, and to only look for the safe. Usagi cuts up an expensive piece of art, only to find that there was nothing on the backside. Totally worth it. They then enter a room with rocks lying on the floor.
The rocks, Hank.
No, they're minerals. Jesus, Marie, I got some geodes coming that are very delicate, all right?
Jodio finds pictures of volcanoes and lava. What's so interesting about taking close-up pics of cool lava, says Jodio. Paco considers the possibility that Rohan is refining medicine in these beakers. Usagi determines that the stuff inside is lava. What I'm trying to say is that a flask is a tool for heating and cooling. A beaker is for measuring quantity and mixing. Lava isn't smooth, it's all sharp and hard and rugged. I have no clue why he has it though, says Usagi. Jodio looks at a picture of Rohan's dog as a mysterious cat walks by, and it turns out to be the same cat that was outside. Okay, so then, that cat from earlier that's been wandering outside the house? Whose is it? Rohan steps out of the pool as Jodio begins to panic. Jodio warns the others, telling them to get out of the house ASAP. Rohan then wonders where the stray cat came from. This couldn't possibly be someone's cat, could it? Dragona determines it's too dangerous. They'll have to look for the diamond another day. However, Paco and Usagi then come upon the safe. Dragona commands the two to stand guard while she opens the safe. He summons smooth operators as Rohan opens the door to go inside. Rohan then notices rain outside, so he goes to retrieve his tablet. While there, his finger gets pierced by one of the spikes from the cactus. Now the safe door has 5 locked bolts, so it's going to take some time for smooth operators to get inside. Usagi then notices the same cat from outside. As long as it doesn't start barking, I don't really give a shit about it, responds Paco. Dragona finally opens the safe, as the three stare at the stunning diamond. Dragona then wonders why there is cool lava inside the safe. They got no time to worry about this as they make their escape. Paco then notices some fishing line wrapped around his ankle. The line self-tightens around his ankle, causing him severe pain. What is this? It's getting tighter! A plastic string then attaches itself to Dragona's arm. It begins to rapidly tighten. Another one goes for Usagi's foot, but he dodges at the last second. The object sort of looks like a fishing line. However, it's floating up in the air, and half of it is see-through. The strings only get tighter, as Usagi suspects that this is the cat's doing. You think a security device like this exists? That's a stand! We're being attacked! That cat's been targeting us the whole time, says Usagi. Rohan then suspects that the cat is up to something, and that the rainfall just now was aimed at a particular spot. Jodio then suspects that Rohan is a stand user as well. He then attempts to warn the others. Alright, so what's going on, guys? Chapter 4 of JOJOLands versus Kishibe Rohan. Now to start off this chapter, we got this nice colored page right here of Kishibe Rohan tied up by Jodio. So really nice stuff. I really like the color pattern and I like the posing as well. The fact that Kishibe Rohan can pose even when he's tied up like this is pretty remarkable. You know, you only live your life once, you might as well be posing. Now Rohan is noticing that the events that just happened are a bit weird. And it seems like he's suspecting that he's being attacked by a stand user. Now because of this, Jodio tries to warn the others that Rohan is a stand user himself. Now because the string is still binding onto Paco's leg, he asks for a pair of scissors. And he implores Usagi to pass over the scissors as fast as possible. Now I thought this other part was pretty funny as well because he's asking Dragona if he wants a pair of scissors as well. But he doesn't refer to him as Dragona, he just says Pink-chan. Now, while this is going on, Paco attempts to stick the pair of scissors between the string and his leg so that he can cut it off. Unfortunately, when he does so, the pair of scissors breaks. It chips off. And because of this, the situation is getting really dire because the string continues to tighten and it doesn't seem like there's a way to get it off. And if this continues, he might actually lose his foot in the process. Now, Dragona thinks that this is part of the security system, but Paco thinks otherwise. He also notes that when he touches the string itself, it feels like it's made of natural materials. But the way it's behaving, it's almost like it's stainless steel. Usagi clarifies that it's not stainless steel, however, that it's a stand ability. They then wonder whose stand ability, as Usagi points over at the cat. Now, even though this seems like the most likely conclusion, Paco wonders why a cat would set up a string trap. But Usagi reminds him that animals, just like humans, can see stand abilities. Jodio then warns Dragona about the situation, about the owner of the house. Now, the group of three put their masks on so that they don't get caught, but the strings are still tightening around Paco and Dragona. Now, Dragona's got an idea. She summons smooth operators, and instead of trying to move the string, she's going to move her hand. And by doing so, she's able to slip her hand through the string and into safety. Usagi then notes that after the string falls off of Dragona's hand, it disappears, confirming the fact that it is a stand ability. Paco then decides to use his own stand ability to contract his muscles around the string. He then begins to vibrate them so that they press up against the scissors blade and start to rub against it. And by doing so, he's able to wear down the string enough to break it off of his ankle. Nice! Screw off! I beat your shitty trap, asshole, says Paco. Now it's time to escape, but Dragona notices that Paco's backpack is open and the diamond fell out. She wonders how this could have happened, and as she reaches over to the diamond, she notices another hand. Were you the one that opened it, the safe? Quite impressive. But what will you do now? Says Rohan. Dragona begins to sweat and wonders if she'll be in danger if she picks up that diamond once again. Now, because Rohan interjected in the situation, Dragona notes that they're going to have to tie him up. Nevertheless, Rohan says that tying him up is out of the question, along with them stealing the diamond. It is then that Rohan decides to use Heaven's Door to find out more information about Dragona. He also determines that this is just a simple burglary. He now wants to read what's written on each of their bodies, because he has to determine how much information they know about the diamond's existence. Rohan then begins to approach Paco, but he tells him to stay away, and if he doesn't, things are going to get rather violent. Rohan doesn't take any heed to his words and makes his advance. But before this happens, Paco leaps over him and grabs him from underneath the chin with his arms. And it looks like the way he did this was by holding onto the ceiling with his back muscles, so pretty impressive stuff. Now, in a surprising turn of events, Rohan decides to throw the diamond over to Usagi. But when he does so, Heaven's Door activates, revealing Usagi's information. Rohan then uses his distraction to reveal information about Paco as well. And by attaining all this information, Rohan discovers that Merome Q is the one behind this heist. Now, because the four of them don't know any information about the diamond, and are just in it for the money, Rohan is quite relieved. Now, Dragona thinks that he has the diamond in his hands, but when he opens them up, they're empty and the diamond is sitting on the floor. A coincidence or not, the mystery of the diamond deepens. Alright, so now we're on Chapter 5, November Rain. Rise up to the pinnacle of this world's mechanisms. Now this chapter starts off with Dragona realizing that the diamond has fallen out of his hands. At the same time, Rohan is tying up Usagi and Paco. He then uses his cell phone to call the police and let them know that someone broke into his house. He then lets Dragona know that a patrol car is coming in about 10 minutes, so they really don't have a lot of time at the moment. Rohan then wants to tie up Dragona just like the others. Out of desperation, Dragona picks up the diamond again and tries to run away. And while he's sweating, it appears the diamond transported from his little pocket bag over to a cup by Rohan. So something mysterious is going on with the diamond. It's really peculiar at this point. Rohan then notices a bundle of banknotes that are lying by Paco, indicating that he was trying to steal them, or maybe this is another trick. And Dragona is like, what the hell, that freaking diamond? Just what is going on with that diamond? Now Dragona demands to know who Rohan is, yet Rohan just sets his focus on tying him up. However, while this is going on, rain begins to pour within the house. Of course, this is very unusual, so Rohan determines that the other cohort that was standing by the pool must have caused this unusual phenomena. In fact, it's most likely a stand ability. He then goes to check in on the carpet, however, the concrete underneath breaks through, allowing Jodio to catch him by the neck and tie him up. After doing so, Jodio apologizes for the inconvenience. Now, while Rohan is tied up, he determines that the rain was adding weight to the concrete. Now, Paco and Usagi want to give Rohan a thrashing, but Jodio stops this from happening, and that's because he respects him as a mangaka. Now, Dragona reminds him that Rohan called the police, and the diamond is acting strange for some reason. It almost appears as if they can't steal it. Now, Rohan claims that they won't escape, but Jodio hands Rohan his phone and tells him to call the police back and say that it was a mistake. Now, Jodio says that he's a big fan of Rohan's work, and he begins talking about lava that he found when he was investigating Rohan. He then pulls out the shards of the lava rock to show Rohan, and upon doing this, Rohan gets pretty nervous. He's starting to sweat. And Jodio even determines that the whole reason for his vacation here was not for the diamond, it was in fact for the lava rocks. And it's very possible that the lava rocks are more valuable than the diamond itself. And by knowing all this information, Jodio says that if they're stopped by any police officers at the airport, that he's going to take the lava rocks that are so valuable and throw them into the ocean. So essentially, he's trying to blackmail Rohan. And to make sure that Rohan knows that he's not bluffing him, he decides to smash many of the lava rocks. All except for one. "Are you out of your mind, you asshole?" says Rohan. "There's still one left," says Jodio. Now, as they get ready to leave, Rohan calls Jodio over. He's got something important to say to him. "If you're going to take that, then a responsibility comes with it. You are by no means to let go of that lava rock. There's only one. Make absolutely sure. If you handle that lava rock with care, then you'll be able to become filthy rich. Such a mechanism will gradually become yours. A law of nature lies in that lava rock." Now, Jodio wonders what he's talking about, but Rohan isn't going to give him any more information. Rohan then says that they'll meet again and that they won't run into any trouble with the police. He then tells Jodio not to speak a word about the lava rock, and he begins to wonder if Jodio can really trust his comrades. Now, as the Gang of Four leaves the property, we notice that Usagi stole some of the artwork from Rohan's estate, and we see that Paco has the diamond in his possession. However, as they're making a run for it, the stray cat, along with some other cats that look exactly the same, start to track them down. And with this, the cat chase begins. Chapter 6, Snatch Up the Rides of This World. Jodio contemplates Rohan's cryptic words about the lava rock. Just what did he mean by that? Entrusting this to someone like me? Dragona informs Paco that he dropped the diamond. Jodio then notices Rohan's original drawing lying on the ground as well. I thought, didn't I put that in my backpack? Questions Usagi. Jodio notices that the money, the diamond, and the drawings are all gathering towards the lava rock. Jodio attempts to pick up the diamond, but ends up getting caught in the wire trap. He drops the lava rock as he notices a cat race by. They then speculate that the wire trap is the cat's doing. The wire then begins to tighten around Jodio's ankle. Usagi speculates that the cat has been standing guard this entire time. Dragona attempts to help his brother as he's pierced in the back by the wire. The wire continues piercing him as the situation looks really dire. The wire then stitches Paco to Dragona's body. Paco then notices that Usagi is missing, as the diamond and the lava rock are gone as well. Jodio commands him to come under him as he activates November Rain. And with this, the wire retreats from the three, confirming that it was in fact a stand ability. While the three wonder what to do next, they notice the cats off in the brush. Jodio then wonders why a cat is using a stand ability against them. In fact, it worries him that they've been watching over them from the beginning, meaning it could be after the diamond. The floating wires cut down several bushes as they go after Dragona and Paco. Dragona urges her brother to use November Rain to break off the branch. Unfortunately, the distance to the branch is out of his range for his stand ability. Paco uses the hustle to climb up the tree so that he can cut the wire from Jodio's ankle. They then notice three cats who are staring down at them. Jodio speculates that the cats know the range of their stand abilities, as it seems like they're keeping an appropriate distance. The cats then reveal their ability to create the wires from their own fur. They use said wires to ensnare the three, leaving them in a precarious situation. Jodio uses November Rain to escape while attacking one of the cats in the process. And by knocking out one of the cats, the wires go limp. One of the cats then becomes very furious. The wires form a net, trapping Jodio inside. Just then, a car jettisons itself into the air and crashes into the base of the tree. And it turns out that Usagi did this to distract the cats. Usagi explains that he mixed sturgeon eggs with the burger meat that he had in the car, and he then fed said meat to the cats. Dragona then tells Usagi that he wants a net. Usagi then drops the lava rock onto the ground. As the two cats go after it, they get trapped within said net that Usagi created with his ability. Jodio then recalls how Rohan told him not to tell his comrades anything about the lava rock. Nevertheless, Jodio determines that someone was watching Rohan prior to their arrival at the villa, which means that someone else knew about the significance of the lava rock. Now that they've drove off the cats, what will happen with Jodio and the others? The crew notices that the cops are not chasing them down, which means that Rohan kept up his end of the deal. Usagi asks Dragona for $20 so that he can buy some snacks. Dragona then wonders if Usagi insured the car, since he dented it up in their prior incident with the cats. Usagi becomes persistent, desperate to get some more snacks. But when Dragona pulls out the money, it's immediately attracted to the lava rock. Are you saying that you want to go back to the villa to ask what the deal is with the lava rock? Maybe the lava rock remembers the owner. Usagi decides to perform a test. Now the lava rock has been sitting on top of Dragona's cash for about 3 to 4 minutes. He then tosses the cash onto the ground, but a passerby swipes the cash and goes to buy something. While Dragona asks for his money back, Jodio speculates that the $20 didn't have enough value. Paco then returns and says that a fly flew into his soda, and because of this, he got a refund and got 4 free sodas. As it just so happens, the change that he received was Dragona's $20 bill. Dragona now wants to perform a test. He wants to go into a luxury shop to place the lava rock on a valuable item. Although he does clarify that they are not stealing anything from the shop. He just wants to find out how the lava rock works. Dragona then takes the lava rock and places it inside his wallet. Inside the shop, Dragona gets ready to place the lava rock on an expensive watch, but is interrupted by a salesman. Dragona directs his attention to the diamond in his wallet, encouraging the salesman to show Dragona the private room in the back. The salesman does just that, and presents 4 expensive watches for their viewing pleasure. Dragona then tries one of them on, one that bears a price tag of $40,000. He then places the watch next to his wallet where the lava rock is. The salesman then locks the room and calls for security, and as it turns out, one of the watches is missing. Outside the shop, Jodio and Paco receive a warning from the cat's owner. Paco then looks in his lunch bag, only to see that it's filled with decapitated cat heads. Alright, so chapter 9, Owner of the Lava Rock. While on the bus, Barbara calls Jodio, asking where he and Dragona are since the latter won't pick up the phone. Jodio explains that they are on the island of Hawaii, and that Dragona has his phone in airplane mode right now. Now Barbara hopes that they're not hanging out with Paco, as Paco wonders where the package came from. Paco wonders if it's the Mafia, or perhaps it's even someone lower than that. Paco states that the original owner of the lava rock could be the one that's after them. Now Jodio recalls a map on the iPad next to the pool, a map of a mountainous terrain in Hawaii. In fact, there was a mark on the map. Paco suggests that they give the lava rock back, since they were only tasked with stealing the $6 million diamond. Now Jodio is certain that the lava rock belongs to Rohan, and he was still trying to determine what it actually did. The mysterious person watching Rohan is not the real owner, and does not know of the rock's abilities. If the Mafia is truly after them, they won't be leaving any witnesses, which means that Jodio's crew wouldn't make it home. Meanwhile, Usagi drops all his pilfered goods to show that he doesn't have the watch. The salesman and the guards continue looking for the watch, as Dragona wonders where it could have gone. Now what's interesting is that he touched all 4 watches, but only one of them disappeared. The salesman has had enough of their games, and begins to call the police. Dragona says that they're being detained unlawfully, and that they know nothing about the missing watch. The salesman puts his phone away, and says that they are free to leave only after they've checked their cameras. So no matter what kind of trick the two of you pulled, you'd better cough up that watch post-haste, you shitty small-time crooks. The salesman pulls up the video on his tablet. Yet in the crucial moment when the watch goes missing, the shopkeeper's shoulder blocks the view. A second camera shows the watch slipping under Dragona's wrist. Dragona checks his pendant pocket to see that Smooth Operators is holding the watch along with the lava rock. The shopkeeper accuses Dragona of theft. Dragona, however, has no recollection of using a stand to do any of that. He then remembers when the diamond rolled into a cup back at Rohan's villa, making him wonder if he also did that unconsciously. The bodyguards approach Dragona, preparing to search his entire person. And I gotta tell you guys, Dragona gets groped a lot in this manga. I feel like that's gonna be a running gag throughout the series. Dragona, who is a guy who obviously looks like a girl, is gonna be groped by a lot of people who, think he's of the female variety. The salesman then grabs onto the lava rock, and because of this, the watch gets attached to his shoe. The watch slides away on its own, and heads for the elevator. After attaining the watch, the clerk and the guards apologize for their baseless accusations. Now the salesman assumes that the watch is too shiny as it falls down once again. While leaving the store, Dragona deduces that the watch will return to him even after he's left the island. Through people's emotions and connections, these things that are worth money are sure to eventually come back. Paco wants to call back Dragona and Usagi since they have the lava rock with them. Just then, another Paco returns with some food. Confused by this, Jodio turns around, finding out that he's been with the imposter this entire time. The skin on the fake Paco begins to disintegrate as he says, "So, you won't give the lava rock back? Even after I went and gave you a chance before you knew too much?" The fake Paco then gashes Jodio across the neck with a sharp knife. And before we start Chapter 10 of JOJOLands, Volume 2 of the manga has already been released, and it's a really nice image of Jodio and Dragona. And this chapter is titled, The Hustle Part 1. Dark clouds hang over Hawaii. If you ignore warnings, all that awaits you is death. Paco looks on in awe, as his impersonator stabs Jodio across the face and onto the ground. Paco demands to know who the imposter is, but the imposter simply lunges at him with killer's intent. Paco uses the hustle to grab onto the food tray to parry the attack. He retaliates with a punch, before grabbing a chair with his back and throwing it, sending the fake Paco into a pile of chairs. Paco determines that the dirt-like material floating around the man's face is a stand ability. The mysterious man sheds his disguise, and thrusts his knife into Paco's face. Paco nimbly dodges all the attacks. He then grabs onto the knife with a hustle, and punches onto his own elbows. The ripple courses into the assailant's body, allowing Paco to grab onto his neck, which he notes feels kinda weird. "How about I strangle you?" The man's hand suddenly emerges from a cloud above Paco, pointing a knife towards Paco's head. Paco prevents the attack, realizing that the enemy can use dirt fragments to distort perception. Jodio realizes that Paco used the hustle to contract the muscles in his neck, allowing him to avoid a fatal blow. Paco then wonders if this guy is truly a human. Dragona and Usagi exit the store, informing Jodio what happened with the luxury watches. Usagi tells them to be on their guards, as Jodio reveals the cut that he just received on his neck. Paco doubts that the enemy is a part of the mafia, but he is nervous about his cryptic stand ability. A couple exit the luxury shop as Dragona notices that the woman has the watch on her wrist. Usagi reminds him that the watch will make its way back to them eventually, through the lava rock. The group agrees to go back to the car as Dragona notices that the woman took the watch off. Dragona becomes worried when she sees some birds that come to eat some nearby food that's right next to the watch. Naturally, one of the birds clutches onto the watch with its talons, as Dragona begins to panic. Yes, it's happening already! It's headed right back to where the lava rock is! Paco urges caution as Jodio notices that the woman is still wearing the watch. Just then, the bird begins to disintegrate, as he grabs onto the lava rock and stabs Dragona through the neck. Dragona collapses to the ground, losing a significant amount of blood in the process. Jodio quickly activates November Rain to pin the assailant down to the ground. Losing consciousness, Dragona summons smooth operators to perform an emergency operation. Alright, so now we're on Chapter 11, The Hustle, Part 2. Smooth operators successfully prevents Dragona from bleeding out. Usagi is relieved to see that Dragona is fine, as he confesses his love towards him. Nevertheless, Dragona rejects him, as he's more focused on finding the guy that stole the lava rock. Now Jodio's November Rain caused the assailant to bleed out, leaving a trail of evidence for them to follow. Paco then grabs the man by the neck, but it's not the assailant they're looking for. Paco then begins to choke the man who bought the watch for his girlfriend. He demands to see their ankles to see if they're bleeding or not, and if they are, they might be the assailant. We then find out that the enemy is fused to the car door, with his knife pointing toward the girl's neck. The two begin fighting each other, with Jodio calling upon November Rain. The enemy disappears once more, as Leo, the man in the car who bought the watch, continues to berate them. The woman's watch begins to travel away from her, giving Jodio's cohorts an idea where the enemy is. Dragona pulls the diamond out of his pouch, taking note that it's trying to get back to the lava rock too. The group looks around the beach as Paco inquires about the attack range of Jodio's November Rain. They look near some rafts, as Usagi expresses his fears to Dragona. Now fused with a splash of water, the enemy emerges behind Paco, ready to stab him. Jodio stops him and begins dragging him into the water. The enemy turns the tables, however, but Jodio activates November Rain to cause some serious damage. Nonetheless, the assailant continues to attack Jodio with the broken blade. Jodio alerts Paco to kick the raft into the water. The air bubbles from the raft allow Jodio to catch his breath. as he plans to see how long the enemy can last without oxygen. Paco informs him that the enemy is actually a pretty good guy, and since he knows more about the lava rock than Rohan, it would be a good idea to work with him in the future. Let's team up. Tell your little brother not to let him drown. Elsewhere, we see a man catching a fish with the $80,000 watch inside. Leo desperately looks for the watch as his girlfriend decides to leave him. Alright, so now we're on to chapter 12, Charming Man. The island of Hawaii is introduced, with having an average rainfall of 30 millimeters in August. Though it's been quiet ever since its eruption in 1801, Hualalai is considered to be an active volcano. There's not a single river that flows on its land. A flashback shows Charming Man with his younger brother, Mauka, racing bikes on a valley in Hualalai. The older brother evades a fallen tree in their path, but he soon realizes that Mauka is no longer on his bicycle. Panic-stricken, he looks for Mauka. He eventually finds water welled up on the ground, even though there's not supposed to be any water on Hualalai. In desperation, Mauka calls out for his brother, before getting pulled inside one of the tubes. Back in the present, Jodio asks Charming Man what kind of music he likes. Now Paco drops the levity, and demands to know what the man's name is and what his age is. Charming Man: I'm 21. Paco cuts to the chase and asks about the lava rock. Charming Man was born on the island of Hawaii, and he tells him about the lack of water on Hualalai. However, there was a place where water welled up, and that's where the lava rock fragment flowed out of. It came out of a big lava tube, a type of cave opening. Rohan picked up the lava rock by coincidence, and thusly began to study it. A watch seller flatters Dragona and attempts to sell him some merchandise. Some merchandise that is totally not stolen or anything like that, because why would he do such a thing? Now Dragona and Usagi are shocked to see that the merchant has the same watch that they were looking at in the shop. The two talk the merchant down to $30, as the watch is finally back in their possession. While boarding a plane for Oahu, Charming Man warns them that they won't get rich off of the lava rock, and they'll understand that very fact when each one of them drops out. In the past again, Charming Man alerted the police to what happened with his brother. Despite his pleas for help, the police officer brushes off the incident and says that the little brother is probably in town right now grabbing a pizza. Now the officer highlights the fact that Charming Man had a past arrest in which he injured a police officer. So if they were to start an investigation, it would start with Charming Man as the prime suspect. What are you talking about? Just do your job, says the nervous Charming Man. The investigator says that if he wants an investigation done, he'll need to scrap the funds together. Otherwise, he's SOL. Now Charming Man's brother is gone, and ever since that day, he never saw a drop of water in those lands. There's lots of volcanic tubes of varying sizes, and Charming Man is certain that he saw the water flowing. Later on, Charming Man witnessed Rohan scattering and collecting dollar bills around the same region. He then picked up the lava rock. Charming Man wondered if there was a connection between the lava rock and his brother's disappearance. In the now, the gang drops off the diamond and the stolen goods. Now the gang is thrilled by their big score. Meryl puts the diamond away in her safe, and then discloses her network of influential acquaintances across the island, including people who work in hotels, media, customs, and even the police. Interestingly enough, there were no reports regarding a robbery or a security breach, which seems to be a little bit odd. You're hiding something important from me, isn't that right? You'd best tell me before you get into trouble down the line, says Meryl. Dragona says that they were going to tell her, but it's a long story. Firstly, Dragona points out to Meryl that the diamond that she put in the safe is now back in her hands. Second, they have a new friend named Charming Man waiting outside. Now Meryl thinks that this information is quite interesting, as she decides to think things over. Alright, so now we're on chapter 13, the absurd event that happened to me that year. What will be the next value that the lava rock attracts? A flashback to 4 years ago begins, showing Dragona and Jodio becoming aware of their stands. Dragona is 14 years old, playing volleyball inside a pool. A girl implores Dragona to hit the ball towards her, as he smacks it accidentally in her face. The girl laughs off the incident at first, but immediately retaliates by smashing the ball into Dragona's face as hard as she can. Try that again, asshole, and I'll fucking kill you. Even in this boring-ass phys ed class, we sure as hell ain't winning anything with you on our team, says the girl. She wishes that Dragona would just disappear from the world. Later on, Dragona goes onto the school bus looking for a seat, but none of the other kids want to sit beside her. He then finds a seat on the back of the bus, but accidentally sits on an ice cream. The girl who threatened him earlier says that he sat on her ice cream. She demands that Dragona go out and buy her a new one. In fact, she demands that he buy ice cream for everyone on the bus. We find out that from one of the teachers that Dragona is a transfer student from New Jersey. We also find out that the rude female in the class has a pair of rich parents that donates a considerable amount of money to the school system. Now the girl wants Dragona to pay her back a different way, as she begins to rub on his cock and balls. The bully begins to strip Dragona, and even mocks him for wearing a bra. Some of the other classmates hold Dragona down, as the girl intends to draw a bra on his chest. She then clamps a curler onto his nipple, eliciting severe pain. A raindrop then falls onto her head, interrupting her harassment of Dragona. The teacher tells Jodio that this isn't an elementary school bus, and that he shouldn't be here. The girl finds Jodio creepy, and mocks Dragona further by calling him Jodio's sister. Jodio retaliates by dropping a raindrop through her eyelid, causing immense pain. After exiting the bus, Jodio wonders how long this girl has been picking on Dragona. The next morning, Dragona doesn't go to school. Jodio uses his stand ability to mess with the bus's door lock. And just then, a fire begins to burn everyone inside the bus. Now, he feels no remorse for the people stuck inside, especially the girl that was picking on Dragona. That is, until he sees a parrot fluttering about. He then uses November rain to put out the flames to save the parrot. Dragona hears about the bus incident from his mother, and while he looks very angry, he actually is quite relieved. Dragona hugs Jodio, advising Jodio to keep the whole incident a secret just between the two of them. Dragona then uses smooth operators to transfer the scarf from his body onto a nearby spoon. Smooth operators, and yours is November rain, says Dragona. Now, Dragona narrates this event as something absurd, and absurd moments can be extremely important moments in one's life, despite the fact that that person will have no responsibility of them happening. Afterwards, the brothers find out that their father lost their job, and subsequently left the house. Now, the arsonist for the school bus incident was never caught, and since the bus driver was forced to drive regardless, he ended up getting very sick, forcing the insurance company to pay him out 10 times the usual amount. Now, Dragona's father was the insurance agent that paid them out, and because this was such a mishap, the insurance company blamed him for the payout. Thus, he couldn't live in Hawaii anymore. To support her children, Barbara Ann was forced to work 2 jobs, all while taking care of them. The neighborhood gangs preyed upon the two, as Jodio always wondered why their family was falling apart. One day, while walking through the gangs, Meryl May drove up to them, warning them that they shouldn't be traveling on such a dangerous street alone. Meryl offers to give them a ride, and even offer them a little proposition. In the present, Meryl meets with Charming Man. Charming Man corroborates the story about his missing brother, and how Rohan found the lava rocks. Rohan searched an enormous area and only found 2 of the special lava rocks. Unfortunately, one of them was destroyed by some mysterious means. Though this lava rock is only a fragment, Charming Man is confident that there are larger ones higher up on the mountain. But that land is owned by a company known as Howler. The area is prohibited, but it's where his younger brother Mauka went missing. Every time he attempts to investigate it, society seems to get in his way. However, if they mimic Rohan's scattering of dollar bills around Hualalai, they could possibly find another lava rock. Meryl verifies the mechanics of the lava rock with the boys, as she determines that they can develop a system to generate more cash. As it turns out, Meryl knows the owners of the land, and she intends to use the lava rock to attain their bank accounts, mountain land, and company. Essentially, they'll be stealing $50 billion worth of assets, and the boys will all receive 4% of the pie. But instead of being robbers this time, they'll just need to get close to the land with the lava rock. Alright, so now chapter 14, Steal the Rights. Jodio, Paco, Charming Man, Usagi, and Dragona are all sitting in the car. After seeing it's 10 o'clock, Paco tells the gang that it's time to head out. Charming Man, Dragona, and Usagi leave the car to enter the land registry office. Usagi gets a little bit nervous, causing him to trip and spill his ramen. In a flashback, Meryl discusses the plan that's playing out in real time. Meryl explains how deeds work, and while they are thought of as proofs of property, they're nothing more than documents confirming the transfer of land ownership. She then takes out a $20 bill. Now, through societal agreement, money allows for the transfer of goods from one person to the next. The lava rock reacts to this system, so if they get close to the original deed of land, it will return to them. Now, a company named Howler owns the land, and Meryl fully intends on stealing all their assets, which totals up to be a value of $50 billion. Even though they're technically not stealing anything, Meryl urges them not to leave any records of evidence behind. Usagi, unfortunately, has already screwed up things a little bit by spilling his ramen. Dragona then uses smooth operators to alter Charming Man's ID by giving him a fake driver's license number and a fake picture. Dragona tells Usagi that anyone can browse the land deeds, so they'll just go through the normal process of looking them up. Usagi uses matted kudasai to alter the security cam footage for their benefit. The receptionist says that they can only view digital records of the deeds. That is, until Charming Man convinces her otherwise. She brings out 48 documents consisting of all the land that Howler owns. She doesn't permit them to touch it, however, as she'll be handling the documents with gloves on. Usagi pretends to study the pages, while Dragona puts her pendant with the lava rock near the pages. As Dragona touches the lava rock to the page, it begins to vibrate. After successfully touching all 48 pages, Dragona happily exits the building with the other 2. Charming Man calls Paco and Jodio as Usagi starts puking his guts out on the sidewalk. He continues vomiting as he struggles to breathe. They check his neck, noticing rock fragments protruding from his skin. Now they can't call an ambulance right now, as they wonder if this is some kind of an attack. Usagi stops breathing as Jodio and Paco wonder what's going on. Charming Man says that they could abandon Usagi, since they've only known him for 3 days. Now Usagi is suffering from pulmonary edema, which might be from a drug reaction, possibly an overdose. Usagi tells Dragona to ask Matted Kudasai for a straw. Matted Kudasai transforms as such, as Usagi stabs his own chest with the box cutter and sticks the straw inside. And this allows him to breathe as they take him over to the car. Through Matted Kudasai, Usagi sees an enemy stand inside of him. What's more, it's making holes inside of his blood vessels. He determines that his heart is under attack, and he even has a sensation of drowning. Usagi demands that they drive away as Charming Man suspects that he's on drugs. Although Usagi has experimented with drugs in the past, he assures him that this is something different, as he pleads with Dragona. Jodio says that they should consider the possibility of an enemy stand attack. And what's more, they should determine when it entered Usagi's body. They explain what happened inside the registry, but nothing seems suspicious. Just then, an ambulance passes by with the woman from the registry inside, and it turns out that she has the same symptoms as Usagi. Blood spurts from her eyes as Usagi realizes that that's going to happen to him next. Jodio determines that this is an automatic pursuit stand, and it affects anyone that gets close enough to the original document. Now Charming Man is impressed with Usagi's ability to take things all on his own, like stabbing his chest to open up his airway. He then detaches his own eyeball, which crumbles like sand and enters the straw inside of Usagi's body. The eye roams around as he wishes for more light. Matted Kudasai responds to this and turns on a light for him. Charming Man then notices an enemy stand making a hole in one of Usagi's blood vessels. He catches up to the stand quickly, as he notes that his movements are slow and dull. He pins the stand down, but a weird growth starts protruding from his eye socket. Now because he touched the stand, he's suffering from the same effects as Usagi. Charming Man is so close to finishing the job, but Jodio warns him that he's developing cancer. Jodio then turns around, only to see Dragona is foaming from the mouth. Onlookers then talk about the registry clerk, and how she's the daughter of a politician who's investigating the illegal activities regarding water sources on Howler's land. Jodio wonders who the enemy is and why they got attacked by simply browsing through the land deeds. Now Charming Man's vitality is draining, as he loses track of the enemy inside of Usagi's body. Now though the stand is weak, merely touching it is dangerous and fatal. Jodio panics over Dragona, as he tells Paco to drive away from the land registry. Dragona, Usagi, and Charming Man are all suffering in pain as Jodio determines that there's a sequence of events that are happening here, and if they follow the sequence, they can determine the stand's location. He commands Dragona to send smooth operators to his right lung. Now he'll need to drag it out of his lungs, as Jodio asks him for some kind of signal that he understands, and Dragona gives him just that. Jodio then summons November Rain, sending a droplet down Dragona's mouth. With smooth operators clutching onto the enemy stand, the droplet obliterates the stand with remarkable precision. Dragona then starts to cough as he can finally breathe again. Dragona will help Usagi find the enemy as Paco says that the user will be showing up sometime soon. Now Jodio wants to head towards a hospital with an MRI machine, and this is going to be useful in helping Usagi finding out where the attack of the enemy stand is. Now they'll have to operate the MRI machine themselves. But before that, Paco wants Usagi to alter the video cam footage to remove any traces of their whereabouts. Inside the Hawaii State Registry office, an agent named Bobby Jean is watching the security footage, which is a faked recording of Charming Man, Usagi, and Dragona. Another agent suspects that Howler is using the land for money laundering. A young girl who Bobby is watching wants a figurine of a cat, who she calls Hula Nyan Dancer, but the guard feels uncomfortable about this. The guard offers to give it to them for free, as Bobby gives them some money anyway. The girl's nose then begins to bleed. She tells Bobby there's footage of 3 students leaving the building. She then deduces that one of the images that they're looking at is faked. Now she doesn't care what happens to them, as everyone eventually meets their demise. And she's revealed to be the stand user who's attacking Jodio's team, as the nosebleed was caused by one of her bag's groove being destroyed. Now that they know that they're dealing with stand users, she tells Bobby to check the traffic cameras. Jodio's team notices the woman from the land registry office in the hospital's ICU. Outside the room, the woman's crying father, Congressman White, says that Sophie was so full of life this morning. He suspects it's the work of terrorists, who are trying to keep him quiet about Howler's land and properties. Suddenly, Sophie's ECG shows that her heart is flatlined. Nurses and doctors rush into the room, as Congressman White is beside himself. White's tablet is then left behind on the chair, and on the screen is his signature. Dragona then uses smooth operators to peel off a fingerprint from White's tablet. He then slides it onto the sensor, thus making the authentication complete. A man surrounded by 3 women then feeds them some top-quality dashi. Ocean warming has limited the supply of this delicacy, so they're quite rare at the moment. This man is revealed to be Howler, as the 3 attendants say that the plane will be landing soon. Upon landing, he's surprised to see a group of men standing by, as the immigration gate is a private pathway for him and him alone. A man from Dolphin Bank informs him that the land that he owns, which is worth about $10.6 billion, is about to be seized by the state government. Congressman White authorized the state government to seize his land, and the other congressmen are all on board with this. Now, Dolphin Bank loaned him about $38 billion, and they demand to be paid back in full right here and right now. Howler only borrowed the money because that's what they recommended to him. And now with his current situation, he's going to have to pay back the bank with the lands that he possesses. And with this, he's bankrupt. The bankers then take their leave, as Howler wonders what's going on here. He tries to get a hold of Bobby Jean, as he wonders if this is happening because of the quote-unquote you-know-what. This movement is similar to what happened when he was a child. Meanwhile, Bobby shows Lulu a photo of the people that exited the van. Lulu disregards the photo, saying that the most important thing right now is discovering what their objective is. Lulu says that they'll die eventually, as she sees a flower ornament in the car. She wants Bobby to buy it for her as she starts to throw a tantrum. And my god, this is some tantrum. She's scratching up the car to all hell. With Lulu's nose bleeding, someone has destroyed Beg's groove. Something that has never happened before. They're going to head to the MRI room, as we see Jodio's gang at the hospital. They'll put Usagi in the MRI tunnel, so that Dragona can use smooth operators to eliminate the invasive stand. They're then asked to leave the room, as Dragona wants to ask matted Kudasai for an MRI machine. Usagi then wonders if Jodio knows what MRI stands for. The R is, man's a real idiot? Blood spurts from Usagi's ear, as the others rush him to an empty room. Bobby and Lulu arrive outside the MRI room and have a look around. Lulu notices the gang behind her, deducing that they're the targets based on Dragona's crown of flowers. Bobby hands a phone to Lulu, as Howler is on the other end. Howler is certain that the people that she's after are in possession of a particular rock. It's a lava rock, and Howler wants Lulu to recover it, and to bring it back to him personally. Lulu hands the phone back to Bobby, as she informs him that they are instructed to eliminate the targets. Bobby summons his stand, Glory Days, firing a pistol with a silencer. The gang then finds themselves surrounded by slow-motion bullets, as they all get hit. Alright, so now we're on to Chapter 18, The Girl's Beg's Groove, Part 3. Dragona, Paco, Jodio, and Charming Man are all struck by Bobby's bullets. In the lobby of the hospital, Lulu wants to be adopted by Bobby Jean. Now, he doesn't like this idea. That's because he disapproves of her constant whining. And if she decided to live in his house, he would definitely scold her for that rude behavior. After tearing up, Lulu says that they should check in on Jodio's gang to see if they're all dead. Bobby receives a photo of Paco on his phone. Now, it turns out that Paco was previously in the military and was dishonorably discharged. Meanwhile, the bullets drill deep into the gang's bodies. Dragona uses smooth operators to remove each one of them from Paco's body. A bullet pierces through Jodio's neck, but he uses November Rain to change its trajectory. Hospital staff asks if they're okay, as Dragona determines that the bullets are automatic pursuer types. Jodio says that this confirms that the rock is working, and that the $50 billion in assets is moving towards them. Matted Kudasai makes the MRI machine as Usagi laughs, and that's because he thinks Jodio's acronym for MRI is quite hilarious. The group starts the MRI machine as Paco and Jodio break down the mechanics of the enemy stand. Paco figures that they're hiding on the floor above, so he and Jodio need to be ready for their next attack. Dragona inspects the images of Usagi's brain, as their metal bracelet then gets stuck to the machine. The strong magnetism pulls a cart and other objects towards the machine. Paco makes his way towards the elevator, as Bobby and Lulu make their exit. Since Bobby's bullets didn't eliminate the group, they'll have to take them down one by one. Paco hears a familiar sound, as bullets surround his entire body. He uses the hustle to grab onto a wall panel, which he folds around his body to shield himself from the bullets. He yells out to Jodio that the father and daughter are the ones responsible for these stands. Dragona worries about Usagi, but the MRI machine is not done taking pictures. Outside of the hospital, Mac, the banker from Dolphin, says that they need to collect Howler's assets before a warrant is issued. That's because at that point, they'll be frozen and untouchable. His stomach then starts to hurt, so he goes to the hospital for some stomach medicine. Unfortunately for him, he's hit by a stray bullet from Bobby's glory days. Alright, so now we're on chapter 19, Glory Days, Part 1. 5 generations ago, the great-great-great-grandfather of Aka Howler had the last name Letrato. In 1843, he was washed up on the island of Hawaii, and soon fell in love with one of the locals whom took care of him. He gained the trust of the Hawaiian royal family, and started a farm on the northern slope. Due to the islands being made from the material of volcanic eruptions, the land was arid with no signs of water. Letrato decided to dig horizontal tunnels into the ground. That's because he believed he could get to some water sources. And as it just so happened, water was eventually discovered. And because of this, Letrato would change his name to Howler, and he started up Howler Farms. In the 60s, they established the water resource, and the water power generator infrastructure, known as Howler Co. Now legally, the northern slope was owned by the descendants of the royal family, but in the name of supplying water resources to the island, it belonged to Howler. Howler is currently controlled by the 42-year-old Aka Howler, the 6th generation head of the family. Now Howler has $50 billion in assets, and has been extending his reach into the other 4 islands. Paco tries yelling out to Jodio about who the enemies are. Jodio scans the area, eventually pausing at Bobby Jean, who is looking at his cell phone. Lulu drops her hula Nyan figure, as Bobby points his gun towards Jodio. Usagi's condition worsens, as Dragona sends in smooth operators through his ear. Now Usagi's life force is draining away, as Dragona urges Charming Man to find the enemy stand. Jodio picks up Lulu's figure as the girl's nose begins to bleed. Unfortunately for her, Jodio picks up on this, and realizes that she must be the stand user. Bobby then uses Glory Days to fire shots at Jodio. Charming Man urges Dragona to hurry up since Beg's groove is deep inside of the Wernicke area, causing Usagi's brain to break down. Smooth Operators pins the stand down, ready to tear it apart. Jodio uses November Rain to surround himself with a barrier, thus deflecting the bullets. Bobby Jean continues to fire bullets at Jodio, but they end up killing the various people in the surrounding area. He's gonna need to erase their images on the hospital cameras, as he wonders what the group is after. Lulu says that they're after the $50 billion in assets. Everything that Howler owns will become theirs. Lulu breaks the Hula Nyan doll as she says that everyone meets their end. Smooth Operator starts dragging out the Beg's groove, as Dragona is shocked to see multiple versions of the stand inside of Usagi. The Hula Nyan doll gets pulled into the machine, as we see more of the Beg's groove stuck on the doll. There's also some on Jodio's hand, as Bobby attempts to corner him. Jodio sneaks up behind him, but unfortunately, several bullets from Glory Days are already heading towards him. Jodio repels the bullets with November Rain, as he decides to hide in one of the bathroom stalls. He then struggles to breathe, as he's now experiencing a pulmonary edema, which means that Beg's groove must have gotten into his body. Slipped through the hail of bullets. Bobby Jean shoots a barrage of bullets at Jodio, hoping to identify his location. Beg's groove continues punching on Jodio's pulmonary artery, causing fluid to leak from his mouth and nose. Now Bobby Jean seems to understand the basic mechanics of November Rain, as he fires multiple bullets at the stall door. Jodio uses November Rain to deflect the bullets away from his body, as Bobby continues firing with reckless abandon. Bobby opens up the stall door as he realizes that none of his bullets have connected with Jodio. He then instructs Jodio to remove everything from his pockets, so that they can have a proper duel. Splattered water droplets then drop from the ceiling onto Bobby's hat. Now the force of the droplet is so strong that it goes through his hat and through his head, killing him on the spot. Lulu is obviously heartbroken by what she sees, as she loses composure and cries over his dead body. With Lulu's ability deactivated, Usagi is finally in the clear. And being that he's in the MRI machine with Dragona, he's pretty happy with his disposition. Man, I'm telling you, this guy likes Fudas, but hey, you know, to each their own. Jodio then instructs Lulu that they'll be leaving the hospital together. After Paco heals up from his wounds, Dragona finds him and informs him that the lower floor is crawling with cops. It seems that Howler knows exactly who they are, and more importantly, he knows that they took the lava rock. Jodio then discovers that the man next door in the ICU is an employee of Dolphin Bank. Meanwhile, Sophie from the Land Registry Office is completely healed since Big's groove is no longer active. Although Congressman White is thrilled that his daughter is okay, he still vows that Howler will pay for its crimes, which means that the lava rock is still doing its thing, and all of Howler's assets are about to become their assets. With Dolphin Bank's documents in their possession, they're going to use them to collect on Howler's debt. Now, the others are a little bit apprehensive about this. However, Jodio reminds them that the lava rock is telling them to do it. And with that, they'll now return to Meryl's place, with Mr. Yokohama in their possession. We then see Mr. Yokohama in his office, playing some mini-putt while enjoying some snacks. Yokohama's wife is disappointed since he'll be gone for the week due to his business trip. We then see his skin cracking, indicating that he is in fact Charming Man. He then meets up with the gang as he informs them that he changed the passcodes. And with this, Howler's assets will be deposited into their bank account. Meryl then asks Lulu if any of their faces got leaked to Howler. Lulu says that Bobby Jean is gone, so she's the only one at the moment that knows about them. Her job started off with finding out who was browsing Howler's deeds, but it soon became a mission to recover the lava rock. Meryl says that the lava rock is their ally, but Howler's moving frantically to find out who they are. Furthermore, to prevent his fortune from being stolen, he'll use violence as a currency. The group needs to avoid being followed by anyone for the next 7 days, so that they can collect the assets. Elsewhere, Howler becomes irate when his driver stops driving. It turns out a bunch of people surrounded his car because they feel like he attained his property illegally, and he did this through his connections with the munitions industry. After working his way through the crowd, he says that the royal family gave his ancestors permission to sell the land. Key West, Loam Chalong, and Ningbo were all friends of Bobby Jean, and they determined that he died from a stand user. Howler says that Bobby was with Lulu, and she has subsequently gone missing. Howler then notices some odd movements on Shebang's sunglasses. Key West says that they'll find Lulu, and they'll be making a map with a location. Key West then says that Shebang's nematode can sniff out the scent of stress in living creatures. She then says that Howler is a final boss, and a final boss should never cower in fear. Instead, he must be broad-minded and imposing. Now, Key West recovered Bobby's search history, learning that he was searching up a man named Paco from the military. Alright, so now we're on chapter 22. A case of identity fraud on the sea. The mission begins. The gang now makes their way to Howler's mansion to corner him and collect the $30 billion worth of money and assets. Along the way, Usagi becomes interested in Charming Man's unique, coarse skin. He grabs onto his arm and admires how it feels rough and warm. Now, it turns out that everyone part of his clan is like this, so it's not a stand ability, and that also includes his brother Mauka. His stand is unique onto himself. However, everyone in his clan is tough against heat and cold. In addition, they all have long lifespans. He then has an internal dialogue where he wonders about Mauka's location. He then blames himself for going over that fence to that area where Mauka got lost. The crew then catches sight of Howler's luxurious yacht. Its estimated worth is $400 million, and it's there that they'll make their final push to seize all of Howler's assets. The court order to seize Howler's assets is going into effect in the next 72 hours. So before that happens, they'll need to transfer the rights to the land to Dolphin Bank. With the documents in their possession, they can execute the return on all his assets. And once the North Slope becomes property of the bank, the government won't need to seize it anymore, thereby making the land theirs. That's the process through which we'll corner Howler. Just right now, the bank isn't an actual bank. It's us. Charming Man changes his appearance to mimic Yokohama's, while Dragona puts on a black suit to look like a bank employee. He'll need to be there, of course, because he's got the lava rock in his possession. While the three carry out the transfer, Usagi and Paco will stay behind to provide logistical support. They'll protect the three and the lava rock from the land. Howler begins to glare at the three, while Key West stands behind him to provide support. The group then receives a message from Meryl, and it states that the history report with the theme of Queen Lily Okalani must be submitted by Monday morning. However, the group determines that something is amiss, and they figure out that she embedded a secret message into the text itself. And sure enough, they figure out that they've been exposed. Howler goes to the lower deck to stare at the three, as we then transfer over to Meryl May in her office. Paco Laborantes, do you remember him? Are you acquainted with him? Says Layam Chabang. She states that Paco was dishonorably discharged, and she requests to know where he is right now. Meryl counters by stating that they'll need to present some ID, because student information is strictly confidential. She then asks them to leave until they attain a court order. But Layam Chabang senses that she's quite uncomfortable with the situation. "What is it you're afraid about? You became fearful all of a sudden," says Chabang. Layam's nematodes begin to move around as she positions herself right beside Meryl. Ningbo then notices that Meryl sent a message on her keyboard, so the two Howler agents move to restrain her. Layam demands to see the message, but upon seeing it, it just looks like an ordinary message to her students. Now, Ningbo doesn't seem too concerned about the contents of the message, but Layam's suspicions only heighten from here, and she's absolutely certain that they will uncover the truth one step at a time. She then continues to press Meryl about further details about Paco. Ningbo then uses his stand ability, which creates bubbles in the keyboard and on Meryl's hand. What will she do next? Let's let her choose. Just who is this principal really? Then we'll know. Now, by deciphering the second message, Paco determines that Meryl is being interrogated by two pursuers. And with Jodio's group on the yacht, Paco decides he's got to go back and save Meryl from whatever's going on. Alright, so now that we're through all 22 chapters that are currently out, it's time to talk about the best fights, poses, moments, and drip. Now, in my personal opinion, the best fight so far was the one between Jodio and Bobby Jean. Bobby Jean had such a cool ability, i.e. Glory Days, in which he could change the speed and the velocity of bullets. Seeing this battle play out between the bullets and Jodio's November Rain was such a cool concept. It was so well done, so well choreographed, and just very exciting. There have been a lot of cool battles so far, don't get me wrong, but this one just really had me enthralled and just had me rereading it time and time again. It was such a cool battle. Best poses so far has to go to Jodio. I skimmed through the entire 22 chapters again, and Jodio's poses time and time again were just among the best. So unique, so authentic, really gives you an insight to his character. I think Araki does such a good job of that, of making the poses emblematic of who the character is as an individual. And this is no exception for Jodio. I mean, every time he does one of his poses, you just get you get that snapshot of who he is as a character. Best moment so far also goes to Jodio. Now, when they were trying to get to an MRI machine to save Usagi, Usagi asked Jodio what MRI stands for. And Jodio replied with, "Man's a real idiot." So yeah, that was just a fantastic moment. Had me laughing the first time, and yeah, it was just a nice little bit of comedy there. Best drip so far, I gave this one to Howler. You know, for a guy that wears polka dots, I mean, he pulls it off with style. I mean, his outfit is just so drippy, it looks so good, and it's so unique. I mean, every JoJo outfit is very unique and, just very eccentric and very flamboyant, but for Howler, I just feel like it really conveys that snobbish, kind of aristocratic mindset, and it's just like, he has the gall to wear polka dots, and he has that braggadocio, he has that swagger, that confidence, he just has it all, and you just like seeing that in a character, especially a villain. You want to have a villain that you can hate, and he just conveys that, and it's just, it's that type of outfit that's just like, man, it makes you think about, like, time and time again. It's like, god damn, did he actually wear that? And yeah, he did. And in spite of it looking kind of bad, at the same time, it kind of looks good. It kind of transcends bad in a way. Obviously, for the funniest character, I had to go with Usagi. I mean, time after time, he just has funny moments. When he was literally dying in the hospital, the dude was still cracking jokes. And it was just funny seeing him, suffer in the hospital. It was kind of a Looney Tunes-esque kind of comedy there. It was kind of like watching Wile E. Coyote, just getting smashed and abused time and time again. It was a nice little bit of slapstick comedy, and even the first time we met Usagi, he's stuffing his face with a hot dog, so the guy's just, a character and just adds a lot of flavor to the story. And then as for the coolest stand, I gave this one to Smooth Operators. This is by far one of the most versatile stands that we've ever seen. It can rearrange the numbers on a license plate, it can change the photograph on a driver's license, and it can also change a person's facial features. Heck, if an enemy stand invades Dragona's body, he can use smooth operators to go inside his own body and stop that stand. It's so versatile, it's so useful, and I imagine it's going to have even more applications than what we've seen. So it's just a really cool stand ability that I like a lot. Now, as for the final score that I gave the manga, now realize that we're 22 chapters in, so obviously this is going to change in the future, but I gave it an 8.1. Now, as for my scoring system, I'm a little bit tough. So a 5 is average, 6 is good, 7 is very good, 8 is great, and 9 is masterful. I only have a handful of manga in the masterful category. So for JOJOLands, after 22 chapters, to already be in the great category is really saying something. This story is setting up to be something very special. I don't know if it's going to be my favorite JOJO part, but I think it has the potential of being in the top 3. Right now, I have Part 7, Steel Ball Run, as my number 1 favorite, and JOJOLion as my second favorite. I think when Araki reset the universe, he really took on a new sort of standard for the JoJo universe. You know, obviously it became more of a seinen manga, issues were taken more seriously, and I feel like the stance became a lot more creative and innovative. And I believe JOJOLands is on that same trajectory, so I think it could definitely be in the top 3 for my favorite parts, and it might even get that number 2 spot. I don't think anything's going to ever touch Steel Ball Run. That was just a very special manga. Just the whole concept was so unique, and it was so well executed. I loved everything about it. But yeah, that's it for me, guys. So tell me what you guys thought of the video. Tell me what you thought of the rankings. If you haven't, I would appreciate it if you like and subscribe. But until next time, I'll catch you guys later.